Welcome back to the channel. So up here in Western New York, we've had our first frost, even though the last few days have been pretty mild, around 75, 80 degrees. But today we're back into the mid 40s, down to almost 50. So it's time for winter beer. We're getting into that time of year. The only problem is I don't want to give up the warm weather. I don't want to give up the oceans and the beaches and those drinks. So I think this time we're going to make a pineapple coconut porter. I think that'll be a pretty good drink. A little bit of winter, nice hearty beer, and maybe a little reminder of a pina colada sitting on the beach. So, this is I Make Beer. I'm Steve Luther. We're going to be making some beer. See you in a minute down in the brewery. So, welcome back. This is my channel, I Make Beer. My name's Steve Luther. So today we're doing a pineapple coconut porter. I'm doing a 5-gallon batch, but I'm splitting it in half. This one I am going to keep the first half, the 2.5 gallons, I'm going to put right on the keezer and carb it and serve it. The other one, the other 2.5 gallons, I'm going to re-rack into another fermenter after fermentation's over, and rack it on oak cubes, toasted oak cubes that have been soaking in rum. So I'm going for that sort of pina colada. That one, we will do a tasting months down the road. That one's not going to be done for a while. But the first half will be at the end of this video. The second half we will do down the road, probably closer to January or February. So I'll get into the recipe real quick. 8 pounds, 12.7 ounces of two-row. I am using 15.5 ounces of chocolate malt. I'm using 15.5 ounces of Munich malt, which is a 6L. I'm doing 7.8 ounces of flaked barley. I am doing 7.8 ounces of black patent malt. And then I'm doing 7.8 ounces of caramel Munich 60. We are using East Kent Golding hops in the beginning of the boil at the 60-minute mark. I'm doing 1.3 ounces. And then I'm doing Fugel hops. I'm doing a ½ ounce at 30-minute mark. I'm using Safe Ale, Fermenter Safe Ale US05 on this one. And then in the secondary, we're going to be doing just under 3 pounds, probably 3 pounds of pineapple puree. And also in the secondary, we are doing just over a pound of toasted flaked coconut. I've got raw coconut right now. I am going to have to toast them, but I don't have to worry about that until we get into the secondary, so I'm not going to do that yet. Our strike temperature, as I said, is 160. We're going to do a single fusion mash at 154, and we'll mash out at 168. I did not use distilled water on this. I used my regular tap water. The parts per million for this beer itself are higher than what my tap water is. And so I just had to add in a little bit of salts to bring it up to where I need it, instead of using my distilled water, and then I would add a lot more salts into it because my tap water is at a fairly good balance for this beer. Just needed to add in a little bit of salts to it to get it where I need it. All right, so we're up to temperature, but I haven't put in my salts yet, so we're doing that right now. Parts per million are going to be here, so you can see what I did total, so you can figure it out yourself when you want to do it with whatever water you're using. So we're getting ready to add in our grist. Okay, so it looks like we're all mashed in here. Just make sure I'm getting all the dough balls out of it. Start recirculating. Check the pH in about 10 minutes. And like I said, it's going to be a 60-minute mash. So if you do check your pH and you have a pH meter, make sure you calibrate it. I try to calibrate it every time I use it, but sometimes it's every other time. But it is in good practice to make sure that you do calibrate your pH meter every time you use it. And I just did, and mine's calibrated. Also, make sure you got electrode storage solution. I just fill up the cup at the bottom of my pH meter just a little bit, and then once I push it on, it squirts out whatever I don't need. But you want to make sure you store it in that solution also. So pH, the pH is good. So we're going to continue the mash. See you in a little bit. Mash is complete. We are going to mash out 168. And we'll mash out for 10 minutes. La-dee-da, la-da-da-da. So the mash is done. I'm just draining the basket right now and heating up the kettle to get up to closer to boil. Then we'll add in our hops once the boil starts up. La-dee-da, dee-da, dee-da-da. All right, our boil started. We're going to add in our 1.3 ounces of, I forgot. We're adding in 1.3 ounces of East Kent. And then we're going to do another addition at 30 minutes. 30 minutes left in the boil. Half ounce of Fugel hops going in. And in 15 minutes, we'll add our yeast nutrient and Werfelach tablet. 15 minutes left in the boil, yeast nutrient and Werfelach tablet going in. Okay, our gravity is at 105.4, which is where it's supposed to be. Our boil's done. Now we're going to start chilling it. We'll get it into the fermenter. We're here for the tasting. Let's go over some of the stats before we get into it. So this was an American Porter 20A, but it does have fruit and I guess nuts, coconut. Is it coconut a nut? I guess it's a nut, right? Anyways, so that actually does fall into another BJCP guideline, but you still have to follow the Porter guideline. Like if you were sending in for judging purposes, it has to follow actually both. So for the American Porter, original gravity is supposed to be between 105.0 and 107.0. Mine was 105.5, but after adding the pineapple, it actually bumped it up 0.004. So if you want to recalculate to get your actual ABV, then you call your starting gravity at 105.9. Either gravity that I'm going to end up using, and I'm just using the 105.9 just to calculate ABV, but it does fall into the BJCP guidelines. Final gravity is supposed to be 101.2 to 101.8. Mine finished out at 101.9, just a hair above. IBUs are supposed to be between 25 and 50. Mine are 36. SRMs between 22 and 40. Mine are 45. I'm not really hung up on the color because once you get around 40, they're pretty dark and you can continue to increase that number. But my perception is you're just dark. You're black and is it really going to get any blacker? ABV is supposed to be between 4.8 and 6.5. Mine's 5.3. So had I finished out at that 101.2 that I was estimated that I was going to finish out at, I would have been up in the 6 to 6.1 range. We already went over the ingredients, so we're not going to hash that back out again. So I'll just go over the numbers real quick in regards to fermentation, and that's just time-wise. But this beer was originally made 16 days ago. It actually, total fermentation was 14 days. I did a 5-gallon batch on this one, but I split the batch. So after fermentation was completed, prior and after I had added the toasted coconut and the pineapple puree, and prior to cold crashing, I split the batch. So what I did is I took 2.5 gallons out of my fermenter. I filled a keg, one of my small 2.5 gallon kegs, which I had previously put medium toasted oak cubes that I have been soaking in rum for a good couple months now.
I put that in there, the little bit of rum that was still left in the bottle after the cubes had soaked up most of it. I dumped all of it right into the keg. And then I purged it with CO2, and then I ended up filling that keg. Now, because I did not cold crash it, all of my toasted coconut was floating on top. And in those Firmzilla fermenters, I have a floating dip tube, and that immediately got hung up in all of that toasted coconut, and I wasn't getting anything out of the fermenters. So I actually had to open the fermenter up and insert a siphon to actually get it out, because I had to get below the dried or the toasted coconut. So I filled the keg. Again, I purged that keg with CO2. I left a little head pressure on that. I think I left about 5 psi. Closed up my fermenter, purged that with some more CO2, gave that a little bit of head pressure because then I was going to cold crash it, and then I cold crashed. After cold crash, all of that flaked coconut dropped right down to the bottom. So I was actually to do a closed transfer, even though it had been opened prior to that, but at least this half of the batch was closed transferred. So we're going to get into the tasting now. So if you can see this, black, it's dark, nice brown head, very tiny bubbles on this head, clinging nicely to the glass. So we're going for aroma. So I am getting a ton of chocolate off of this. This batch, I specifically used my chocolate malt, which is a 500L, and I used just about a pound. It's just a half ounce under a pound. And you can also smell the coconut. I'm not getting the pineapple on this. I'm not getting any hop aroma. It does smell good though. All right, so let's go into mouthfeel. Very smooth. I mean, I hate to make the comparison, but velvety. Getting a little bitterness. I think I'm getting more bitterness from the black malt more than the hops. That's going for flavor. A little bit of roastiness, not a lot. Definite chocolate. Definitely getting the chocolate flavor on this, and you've got the coconut. Again, I'm not getting the pineapple. Don't know if I should have added more, or maybe added it a little bit later, maybe just before kegging. Hard to say in that. We may have to do this again and see how if I can bump up that coconut or that pineapple flavor. Got a hint of sweetness. It's not overly sweet at all. With the 1019 finished gravity, it's probably just a little bit higher than it would have been if it finished out at 1012. Very good though. I'm very surprised that the coconut aroma and flavor is very prominent. It's not too much. It's not good, especially if you're not a coconut fan, but it's right there. You can taste that coconut, but it blends really well with that chocolate. The mouthfeel is good. The carbonation level is, I'd say, almost perfect. It probably could come up just a hair. Beautiful head on this. Now it's going around because I've been sloshing it. Also, as I said, this follows the 20A BJCP guideline, but it also falls into the fruit beer category, which is 29A. If you were to send this to a competition, you would actually have to put it in the fruit beer category, 29A. But the base beer outside of the fruit that was added still has to follow the American porter in this example of 20A. So you can't have your fruit beer and call it an American porter and then have the ABV at 8.5%, because that doesn't fall into the guidelines. So you still got to follow both guidelines. You're adding fruit to one of the standard classifications of our beer styles. So you're actually following two classifications, different beer styles. So as I said at the beginning of this video, we've had our first frost. It's chilly today, and I don't think we're going to get any more warmer weather. I think we're done. I think we had our Indian summer, and we're going into Halloween, and then probably snow. So quarter, the other batch that I made, the other half, I'm going to let sit in that keg for probably at least 4 months. Right now it's just sitting at 5 psi. It's just sitting in the keg, and it's just going to sit there. So I will do a comparison to the two. I won't have this left, but I'll fill a couple bottles of this, so I'll have something around. And then at a later time, I'll do a quick summary of that beer and a quick comparison of the two. You know, maybe we got, with some aging, maybe we got some different flavors outside of the rum and toasted oak chips. Actually, they're oak cubes. So we got ourselves a hearty winter beer that should hopefully remind you of at least some tropical place. So thanks for joining me. I'll see you at the next one. Make some beer. Cheers.